What's different about this year's Colorado compared to last year's Colorado? Because last year's Colorado started hot, vibes were immaculate, they're a national story, and then they started to pile up losses, and then before you knew it, Colorado finishes their first year under Coach Prime 4-8. This year, though, Colorado has been on a heater, already bowl eligible, vibes once again immaculate, but I think it's not just the record, it's what this team is, both from a roster level, from an approach level. We'll talk about all that right now. Make sure you are subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. Colorado fans, understand now, a lot on the table for your Buffs here down the stretch. Need some help, sure, but the Big 12 title, with the way the Big 12 has been just chaotic the entirety of this season, I wouldn't count it out of the realm of possibility. So we'll talk about all that on this channel. Make sure you're subscribed. Also follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at JDPicKell. So let's start here. One of the most noticeable differences about Colorado is the literal roster. What I mean by that is Colorado took 42 transfers this past cycle. So if we're looking at the overall makeup of this roster now, it took 2 cycles for Deion to, I think, ultimately flip the roster to a place where they could be competitive to the level that they expect to be competitive at. And I want to hone in on this because remember during the offseason there was that article that came out where players that were cut from Colorado are sharing their experience and talking about how, they wish they'd had a chance and, all these different things. And that was, I believe, the first portal cycle when Coach Prime got there. But here's what I think was kind of lost in that whole discussion. People are saying, what is Deion Sanders doing? It's college football. These kids are on scholarship. He's taking that away from them. And I'm sitting here like, I have no issue with the way that Deion Sanders went about assembling this roster when it came to cutting players and adding new players. Like, say what you want about how they use the portal versus high school recruiting. That's a different discussion. But again, if my job depends on winning football games, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure I have the best players, whether that's cutting players on scholarship and going to the portal, whether that's recruiting high school at a certain level. Like, I have no issue with what Deion Sanders did. Why? Because it's Division I college football. This is not YMCA. This is not, some, robotics club. Like, this is college football. And so for Deion Sanders to approach the portal the way that he did and to approach his current roster, which, mind you, a 1-win roster when he got there, I have no issue with that. So the literal difference here is the caliber of player is undeniably better in 2 years than it was when Deion Sanders arrived. And I think it's also better from what they were last year based on what you're seeing on the field. Now, here's the thing that I think we were calling for really since last season when things started to trend downward, even when things were going well for Colorado a season ago. This was always the key ingredient. Could Colorado become just a touch more balanced? The conversation was not Colorado has to be this Death Star where they're running for 200 and throwing for 300 and they can hurt you any which way. Like, we always understood what the strength of this Colorado football team was. It is Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, and this receiving corps. Like, that is the fastball. The question was, can you keep defenses honest enough and have enough on your defensive side of the football to maximize that? Because there was a certain style of play that Colorado was rolling with last year where it was like, hey, we got to get in the end zone, it feels like every series. Also, we have to make them chase us. Colorado now has established much more balance. On the ground now, going back to what they got via the portal, Isaiah Augustov, running back for them, 4 yards of carry on the season. Had darn near 100 yards most recently against Cincinnati. Again, he's not running for 1,000 yards this year, but to have enough to say, hey, if you don't give us the proper attention in the box, if you want to just totally key on the pass game, we're going to run the football. Hey, when we get into the low red area, we can run the football. We get on the goal line, we can run the football. Just having that even just be something defenses have to worry about a little bit. Goes back to what I said. It maximizes your fastball. Defensively, too, you're seeing them have a better ability to rush the passer. The offensive line, they overhauled that via the portal. So just the overall balance here, it's a more balanced football team, and that's why you're seeing the results that you're seeing on the field. Now, here's, I think, maybe the biggest difference, and it doesn't show up in the box score. It doesn't show up when you watch tape, but I think the overall just makeup of how Colorado goes about their business now, from the outside looking in, it feels different to me. It feels different. And the reason why it feels different is because last year I talked about the success they had, and it felt like whether it was a depth thing, whether it was a approach thing, however you want to, look at it, Colorado did not handle success well. From what I can tell with this team, whether it's success like they had against Colorado State, like they've had against UCF, like they had against a number of different spots, 6 games now for those y'all keeping track at home, they've handled that well. And also look at their losses. The loss to Kansas State, loss to Nebraska. They've bounced back in a very real way. And I think that was the question, was like, okay, that's great that they can, outscore some teams. Cool. That was something that I think we all expected to some degree. They were going to have some potent outputs offensively. But when they got in those situations where they lose to a Nebraska, get out physical by a Nebraska, where Kansas State beats them at their place, how do they handle the lack of success? And the thing for me, like when I started to put this segment together, like college football is it's almost like navigating like a current. There's all these things trying to push you different directions, and your job as the head football coach, as a football program, is to stay as centered as possible to get to where you want to go. There's things pulling you left, losses, having injuries, having people tell you you're great, having people tell you you're horrible. There's things pulling you right. There's things talking about, what your team's not going to accomplish that season. People talking about what bowl game you're going to make. People telling you you're not going to make a bowl game. Like there's so many different external variables that try and push you every which direction. And for what I've seen from Colorado, they do a tremendous job to this point in the season of being able to hit the reset button and be able to produce at a high level, whether they've just won a game or whether they've just lost a game. Like the game against Baylor was a tremendous example of this. Emotionally draining game, and I was fully prepared to see them have some kind of a letdown spot. Wasn't the case. Was not the case. They go on the road, 2 touchdown dogs to UCF, handle business, blow out UCF. So now I think when we talk about their approach, make sure we give credit where credit is due. Because yes, the locker room, I absolutely believe, has bought in and has taken a different mindset based on what happened last year into what they're doing this year, and also just speaking to the caliber of player they have now in that building. That's absolutely true. But like, give Deion Sanders credit, because to make the jump and to have a 1-win football team to a 4-win football team to ultimately now being a bowl-eligible football team, we'll see what they finish at this season. Just the fact that we're talking about the Big 12 championship even being a possibility verifies this year as a success for Deion Sanders and the folks out there in Colorado. Like, make sure we understand it is a difficult thing to get a locker room to buy in, and maybe more importantly, to believe and to expect to win. Like, it's funny, that was always the conversation with the media, was like, do you believe, do you not believe? And like, I was consistently saying like, hey, we just want to see a little bit more before anybody should decide if they're believing or not believing. Like, seeing is believing from where we're sitting. But in that locker room, you had to believe before you had success. I truly believe that. And so credit Deion Sanders for being able to instill that belief, to be able to instill that confidence within this football team, because I'll promise you this, you do not get those results without that confidence, without that belief in-house. So credit Deion Sanders, credit Colorado. Massive strides since when he got there, and I'll say this too, massive strides from where they were a season ago. 100% the case. I'm excited to see how they finish the year. Make sure you're locked in. Make sure you're subscribed. Get at me on the social channels, Instagram, Twitter, at JD PicKell. Want to hear from y'all there. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.